Far from it. His interest in the Ayleids is not that of a mere scholar. He hopes to unlock the secrets of their magical power, and if you know anything about Ayleid-ruled Cyrodiil, that should make you very uneasy. Hey, welcome back. And today, let's learn about that Ayleid-ruled Cyrodiil. They, as most elves did, came from the Somerset Isles during the Merithic era. They arrived at an island in the center of Lake Rumer, and from it created a beautiful city, at the center of which the White Gold Tower. From there, they spread far beyond the bounds of modern-day Cyrodiil, growing into some of High Rock, Valenwood, and even Blackmarsh. Their empire was never united. It had separate cities, with separate kings, with separate cultures. Some still honored tradition and worshipped their ancestors, the Aedra, while others took to worshipping the others, the Daedra, and giving them deals to strengthen their power. Here's a really cool map that I found on a Reddit made by this person here that shows the sort of heat map of the spread of the Ayleids and their religious affiliations, if you are at all interested in that. But what this culture is mainly remembered for in modern day was how they treated the race of men. For generations, the Nedic men and women of Cyrodiil were forced to endure enslavement by their elven masters. Slavery that was built systematically into the culture. It went beyond using them for mere physical labor. The Ayleids enjoyed putting slaves through immense physical pain, for the art of pain itself. Here are some texts that I found while exploring Cyrodiil in the Oblivion Remastered, and explore what little we know about this once great and once horrible civilization. Links for all of the timestamps are going to be in the description if you would like to jump around and, choose your own adventure style. Firstly, The Wild Elves by Kiedro Korvac. A brief description of the Ayleids, or Wild Elves. It can be found here, in the private quarters of one Ayleid expert, Umbacano. In the wilds of almost every province of Tamriel, descended philosophically, if not directly, from the original inhabitants of the land, are the Ayleids, commonly called the Wild Elves. While the three races of elven stock, the Ultmer, or High Elves, the Bosmer, or Wood Elves, and the Dunmer, or Dark Elves, have assimilated well into the new cultures of Tamriel, the Ayleids and their brethren have remained aloof toward our civilization, preferring to practice the old ways far from the eyes of the world. The Wild Elves speak a variation of Old Cyrodiilic, opting to shun Tamrielic and separating themselves from the mainstream of Tamriel even further than the least urbanized of their elven cousins. In temperament, they are dark-spirited and taciturn, though this is from the point of view of outsiders, or Palani in their tongue, and doubtless they act differently within their own tribes. One of the finest sages of the University of Gwilym was a civilized Ayleid elf, Churhan Aethir, First Era 2790 to Second Era 227, whose published work on the Wild Elves suggests a lively, vibrant culture. Fear is one of the very few Ayleids to speak freely on his people and religion, and he himself said, "The nature of the Ayleid tribes is multi-hued, their personalities often wildly different from their neighboring tribes." Fear T. Nature of Ayleidic Poesy, page 8, University of Gwilym Press, 2nd Era 12. Like any alien creature, wild elves are often feared by the simple people of Tamriel. The Ayleids continue to be one of the greatest enigmas of the continent of Tamriel. They seldom appear in the pages of written history in any role, and then only as a strange sight a chronicler stumbles upon before they vanish into the wood. When probable fiction is filtered into common legend, we are left with almost nothing. The mysterious ways of the Ayleids have remained shrouded since before the First Era, and may well remain so for thousands of years to come. Now, Ayleid reference text by Rayleigh's Anime, a series of Ayleid phrases and their translations given to the player in the quest Vakten's Secret. The following inscriptions were painstakingly transcribed and interpreted over many long years, and are preserved here for all of time. Avmolaganiamas, Avlata Magica. From fire, life. From light, magic. Bera Gea Risol Karan. Wear lore as your armor. Agia Halia Nehorane Emerald Aloria. Wisdom learned by pain is a reliable guide in dark times. Literally, terrible wisdom never betrayed the lore masters. Now Aldmeris Mathmeldi, Admi Orane, Granda Sepria, Avrieles, Yibereles Yivaraias. Our exiled elven ancestors heard the welcoming gifts of peace in the streams and beech trees and stars. Mathmeldi means literally from home driven. Suna ye, suna be. Bless and blessed be. Vagarles agia, gravia ye goria, matia malaria av malatu. In the caverns of lore, ugly and obscure, shines the gold of truth. Vabria frenska, sabel, sabon, amoraldain, aldemeris, Adonai. The foaming wave, so thunderous, so mighty, heralds the lordly elves. And now, Magic from the Sky, by Irlav Jarl. Treaties concerning Ayleid wells, Welkin stones, and Varla stones, found on a table in Vakten. The ancient Ayleids believed that Nirn was composed of 4 basic elements: earth, water, air, and light. And of these 4 elements, they believed the most sublime form of light was starlight. The stars are our links to the plane of Aetherius, the source of all magical power, and therefore, light from the stars is the most potent and exalted of all magical powers. From time to time, fragments of Aetherius fall from the heavens. The people know these fragments as shooting stars, and from time to time, such ethereal fragments are found on Nirn. The most common varieties are known as meteoric iron. This metal is prized by armorers and enchanters for its properties in the forging and enchanting of weapons and armors. This meteoric iron is also the primary component in Ayleid wells, ancient enchanted artifacts found throughout Cyrodiil. Another, rarer form of ethereal fragment is called meteoric glass. It is from such fragments that other, rare Ayleid enchanted artifacts are crafted: Welkin stones and Varla stones. Ayleid's wells are scattered across Cyrodiil's landscape. Their sitting is a mystery. They are not associated with any known Ayleid cities or settlements. It is presumed that, in some manner, they harvest magical power from starlight. It is also suggested, without evidence or support, that they are located at the meeting points of ancient lines of magical power. However, modern arcane arts have discovered no perceivable evidence of such lines of power. Those with magical talents can draw magicka from the Ayleid wells to restore their own reservoirs of magical power. No ritual or arcane knowledge is necessary, suggesting that these wells were designed to serve persons not skilled in the magical arts. Once drained, the wells replenish again, only at magical midnight. Once recharged, they appear to radiate magical power back into the sky, which prompt some to theorize that they are also objects with religious or magical ritual significance, perhaps a means of offering magic back to the heavens. Welkin stones, Aldmeris, Skystone, Heavenstone, literally Sky Child, are pieces of cut and enchanted meteoric glass, which apparently act as storage devices for magical power. A magical talent can restore his reservoirs of magicka from such stones. Alas, the means of restoring the power to these stones may have been lost with the Ayleids. Currently, these objects simply crumble to dust after they have been used. Great Welkin stones are exceptionally large pieces of enchanted meteoric glass. Scholars believe that at the heart of each Ayleid city, a great Welkin stone was the source of the settlement's magical enchantments. It may be that these great stones were linked to the lesser stones, restoring and maintaining their power. In any case, the research on these great Welkin stones is impossible, since all known Ayleid ruins have been looted of their great stones, and no examples of these great stones are known to survive. Another rare enchanted item found in Ayleid ruins is called a Varla stone, Aldmeris Star Stone. Varla stones are remarkably powerful, enabling untrained users to restore magical energy to any number of enchanted items. Because of their great value and utility, these items are also extremely rare, but since they are small and easily concealed, diligent explorers may still occasionally come across them in any Ayleid ruin. Ayleid wells, Welkin stones, Varla stones. Consider then these marvels of magical enchantment. Are we, than to conclude that the Ayleids were a superior race and culture? Did they so exceed us in art and craft that they mock the feeble power of Third Era wizards? Never. The Ayleids were powerful, yes, and cunning, but they were never good nor wise, and so they were struck down. Their works have passed from Nirn, save these rare, sparkling treasures. Their ancient cities are dark and empty, save for the grim revenants and restless spirits, condemned forever to walk the halls, keeping their melancholy vigils over bones and dust. And now, The Last King of the Ayleids, by Herminia Cinna. This chronicles the downfall of the Ayleid Empire in the First Era. It can be found at the first edition in the Imperial City Marketplace. The Ayleids, or Heartland Elves, ruled Cyrodiil in the long ages of myth, before the beginning of recorded history. One of the earliest recorded dates, in fact, is the fall of White Gold Tower in First Era 243, which is commonly assumed to mark the end of the Ayleids. Although Ayleid rule over all of Cyrodiil was indeed broken in First Era 243, this is only one of the most obvious stages near the end of a long decline. The first 2 centuries of the First Era saw increasing strife between the great Ayleid lords of Cyrodiil. Alicia appears to have taken advantage of a period of civil war to launch her uprising. Imperial historians have traditionally attributed her victory to intervention from Skyrim, but it appears that she had at least as much help from rebel Ayleid lords during the siege of the White Gold Tower. The popular image of the Ayleids as brutal slave masters is based in fact, of course, but it is less well known that a number of Ayleid princes continued to rule parts of Cyrodiil after 263 as vassals of the new Empress of Cyrodiil. This suggests either that Ayleid rule was not universally detested, or that Alicia and her successors were more pragmatic than is traditionally believed, or perhaps some of both. In any event, excavation at a number of Ayleid sites show continued occupation and even expansion during the so-called Last Ayleid period, First Era 243 to circa 498. At first, many Ayleid lords continued to rule as vassals of their new human regime. In some cases, Ayleid supporters of Alicia were even rewarded with new lands taken from slain enemies. It is not clear to what extent human slavery continued under the Cyrodiilic Empire. Humans continue to dwell in Ayleid-ruled areas of Cyrodiil, but there is nothing definitive to show under what terms. This was an uneasy relationship from the beginning, and it was not destined to last long. Resentment at the continued presence of Ayleid nobles within the empire was a contributing factor to the rise of the so-called Elysian Order founded by Maruk. The first victims of the Elysians were the Ayleids of Cyrodiil. In the early 300s, the surviving Ayleid communities in human-ruled areas were obliterated one by one, the refugees temporarily swelling the power of the remaining Ayleid lordships. Then, in 361, the Elysians gained control of the empire and enforced the Elysian doctrines throughout its domain. The Ayleid lordships were abolished. Enforcement of this decree did not appear to have required much direct violence. It seemed that by this point, the balance of power was so overwhelmingly against them, and their fate so long foreshadowed, that most of the remaining Ayleids simply left Cyrodiil, eventually being absorbed into the elven populations of Valenwood and High Rock. Indeed, the rise of the Durrani hegemony may have been linked to the exodus of Ayleids from Cyrodiil, a connection so far little studied by historians. Still, a remnant Ayleid population seemed to have survived the rule of the Elysians, because we hear of the last king of the Ayleids joining the Battle of Glenumbra Moors, where the Durrani decisively defeated the Elysians in 482. How this king's people survived the preceding century is unknown. We do not even know who they were, although recent research points to Nenalata as the possible resting place of this last king. Unfortunately, in the state of the Empire, funds are no longer available for proper scientific investigations of such extensive ruins. So the answers to these questions will have to be left to future generations. And finally for today, Glories and Lments by Alexandra Hetrard. The Glories of the Ayleid city of Syadatar and laments over the collapse of the Ayleid civilization, found, once again, inside Umbacano's manor. Having arrived at Front Priory, halfway on the Golden Road between Skingrad and the Imperial City, I resolved to make a side trip to view the magnificent ruins of Siatatar, or Shadow of the Fatherwoods, in the ancient Ayleid tongue. After many hours of difficult travel through tangled hawthorn hells and limberlosts, I was suddenly struck dumb by the aspect of 5 pure white columns rising from a jade-green mound of vines to perfect V-shaped arches and graceful capitals towering above the verdant forest growth. This spectacle caused me to meditate on the lost glories of the past and the melancholy fate of high civilizations now poking like splinter shards of bone from the green-grown tumulus of time-swept obscurity. Within the forest tangle, I discovered an entrance leading down into the central dome of a great underground edifice, once dedicated to Magnus, god of sight, light, and insight, dimly lit by the faded power of its magical pools. The shattered white walls of the enclosure shimmered with a cold blue light. The marble benches of the central plaza faced out across the surrounding waters to tall columns and sharp arches supporting the high dome. From the central island, stately bridges spanned the still pools to narrow walkways behind the columns, with broad vaulted avenues and limpid canals leading away through ever-deepening gloom into darkness. Reflected in the pools were the tumbled columns, collapsed walls, and riotous root, and vine growth thriving in dark half-light of the magical fountain. The ancient Ayleids recognized not the 4 elements of modern natural philosophy, earth, water, air, and fire, but the 4 elements of high elf religion, earth, water, air, and light. The Ayleids considered fire to be but a weak and corrupted form of light, which Ayleid philosophers identified with primary magical principles. Thus their ancient subterranean temples and sanctuaries were lit by lamps, globes, pools, and fountains of purest magic. It was by these ancient faded but still active magics that I knelt and contemplated the departed glories of the long-dead Ayleid architects. Gazing through the glass-smooth reflections of the surrounding pools, I can see, deep below, the slow pulse, the waxing and waning of the welkin stones. The chiefest perils of these ruins to the explorer are the cunning and deadly mechanisms devised by the Ayleids that torment and confound those who would invade their underground sanctuaries. What irony that after all these years, these devices should still stand vigilant against those who would admire the works of the Ayleids. For it is clear, these devices were crafted in vain. They did not secure the Ayleids against their true enemies, which were not the slaves who revolted and overthrew their cruel masters, nor were they the savage beast peoples who learned the crafts of war and magic from their Ayleid masters. No, it was the arrogant pride of their achievements, their smug self-assurance that their empire would last forever. That doomed them to fail and fade into obscurity. Hey, thanks for listening to all of that stuff that you just listened to. It's been a lot. I've been having a lot of fun making these, been getting a lot of love lately, and I just want to say thank you for enjoying things. And if you enjoyed this one in particular, you know what to do: like, comment, subscribe, all that other fun stuff. And also, if you have any other suggestions on things for me to read from the wonderful world of Elder Scrolls, let me know in the comments, or any other thoughts you have in the comments about the wonderfully horrible Ayleid civilization. It's fun to talk about Elder Scrolls with people. And remember, wear lore as your armor.